Would you treat your sibling or your kids, for example, differently depending on their gender?
No.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
actually, I retract. In the world we live in, sadly, yes, but it's not a good thing. Um,
Um,
oh,
yeah.
do you
Go
want to
ahead,
go
brother.
first, or?
Yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I
Keep going.
felt
Um, Sadly, in the world we live in, women are more threatened by the outside world, by people, mostly men, um, but not exclusively. And so, sadly, if I was a father and I had a daughter, I would highly, highly suggest she take self-defense courses, and that she has like she takes precautions in case she's being followed by someone, in case this, like, have her prepared,
mm,
and of course I would probably think about it more because the risk is higher,
mhm.
and not because she's a girl, but because of how the world treats girls, you know.
Okay, yeah, makes
So
sense.
one thing to make sure is I would make sure that she knows it's not her fault. It's not because she's weak. It's because the world is more cruel towards her.
Towards it,
And
Yeah.
you're doing a responsibility to make sure that she's okay in a world like
Yes.
this. And that's
Yeah.
part of the responsibility of a parent, regardless of
Yeah.
however the world is shaped.
I'm
You
the
have
one who's
to
supposed to take care of her. So yeah.
exactly the role of as a parent is to prepare the next generation or the kids that you're going to have in the future, make them prepare for the world. You know, you have to
And
before you leave them, and before they become adults and being responsible, you have to prepare them for what the world is.
yeah.
Yeah, obviously it's sad that we have thieves and we have people that have malintentions and stuff. It's the world that we live in currently, and we have to prepare our kids to face that.
Right.
Especially with where you mentioned before, like you could teach or you can like enroll your kids into martial arts to be able to help them fend for themselves and defend themselves if they're ever cornered in some point of time in their life. And I think it's a good thing. No, no, it's a very good thing. You're just being more prepared.
Right.
I agree with both. But the thing is, it's say you have both a daughter and a son, right?
Yeah.
Mm.
And so the question was more towards whether or not you would say you enroll your daughter in martial arts. Would you do the same for your son?
Of course, both.
Yeah.
So then ultimately you would treat him the same then.
Yeah. If
No,
possible. Yeah. But if possible, but keep them aware of the social context they're in.
Yeah, grant. Yeah, but I'm saying
So
like
the girl
ultimately like
has to know that she's going to be aimed at more than the boy. So sure, if it was like, do I enlist one or both in martial arts? Why not both,
well
right?
yeah.
A skill that is universal. It's just that the girl absolutely needs it. The boy, it's an add-on, so why not? But
Okay.
the girl, it's like I'll
So
have to be more adamant about her needing
so
these.
so, so you see it more as a necessity for the girl and as an advantage for the boy.
Yeah,
but you're not gonna start buying like Barbie dolls for your son. There's always a difference in how you can bring up your son or your daughter. There's always a difference. And sometimes, even if we don't want to have this sort of bringing up the kids differently, we don't. We subconsciously do it because, like, for example, you have your daughter like right in front of you, and she wants to go play with the boys soccer or whatever in the park.
Mm,
yeah,
Obviously, you're not gonna let her go play because she could get hurt. Like the kids play rough, you know.
mm.
If ever you think that way,
um,
but obviously, it doesn't mean that you don't let her play soccer. That's not what I meant. That's not what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say that you need to bring her up in a way she can't just get mixed in with the wrong crowd or the wrong side of the coin. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
At the wrong moment. Whereas if you compare that to your son, you wouldn't have to worry about him because he sort of has this natural instinct to be amongst the rest of the boys. You know,
Well,
because
however,
it's
if
generally built in with them.
but the thing is that's more subjugating to the point of view that the guys are the only ones that could be aggressors. which
Right.
which is not
Yeah,
not
you're
always true.
forgetting that there are female aggressors, and
Well, in
also
reality, in most cases, I think we can all agree that boys are more aggressive than girls. In most cases,
That depends though. That depends though
that's
because
because of societal like stereotypes that are reinforced. That's because we live in that world. But rather, instead of telling the girl that she can't go play soccer because the boys are playing, you tell the boys, "Hey, don't fuck around with my daughter. Like, don't hurt her. She wants to
I
play."
wouldn't take the risk, honestly, because
just
like at the end of the day, it's your kid. Whatever happens is just responsibility. So
granted, yeah.
I think playing the safe card sometimes, not all the time, but it would be wiser to play the safe card in some situations.
Because the thing is, the way that because girls and boys, granted, they're both aggressive, but in completely different ways. In terms of like girls are more, in a way, calculating, whereas guys are straightforward. So when you say a guy's aggressive, it's like, oh, I'll push you around and do rough physically. But
Yeah,
girls, because they're more sort of, they mature earlier, they're more sort of calculating and more sort of like, it's a passive aggressive type thing. So like
hmm
when you see, for example, girls bullying girls versus guys bullying guys, girls bully, the way girls bully is psychological, and so that shit lasts really fucking long, and that's why most girls, whenever they get bullied, they're in like depression, and it always hurts them, and it always, like, the point is
It's
to
more
humiliate them.
long-term damage.
Yeah, it's to
Possible.
humiliate them, whereas the guy is like, oh, I'm showing you who's boss. I'm
But this
much
is
superior.
only referring to children, because I think the older you get, the more there's all sorts of things that can.
Well, that's well,
well,
obviously, because the older you get, the wiser you are as well.
as older they get, you sort of like um, have this sort of like release, like okay, they'll be fine. You know that I don't have to keep an eye on them 24/7 on the clock because
Right.
they're like 2 3 year olds. No, you know they're grown enough. They're able to handle themselves
Right.
regardless of gender.
But
Me, I
As
would,
they hit at some point, they could fend for themselves.
I don't know. For me, the way I would raise both is the same. Is I'll be cautious with both,
right.
regardless of their gender.
Exactly.
Because for me, even like a guy could be completely manipulated by a
Yeah.
guy or a girl, regardless.
Yeah.
Like the same way your daughter could be manipulated by a guy or girl. Granted, the repercussions may be different, but ultimately, it's
Or
still, yeah. Because like a guy could get raped as well. A guy
yeah.
could depend. Just because the dude is like is small or big, it doesn't really matter. It's more sort of like,
Right.
if there's 5 people jumping your ass, you're gonna get your ass handed to you regardless of what
Yeah,
fucking gender you are.
regardless.
So
And if there's a
But
power dynamic,
I think
either
I would
way.
treat like my sorry without cutting off, but I think I would treat like um my son, my daughter differently because I wouldn't want that I wouldn't want the risk for them to go through something that's going to cause them harm psychologically or physically
yeah,
because I decided to raise them the same. Because if I raise them the same, they won't know like they won't know how to act like when they're amongst their friends that are boys or their friends that are girls. They'll be confused
Right.
because unfortunately in today's society, like parents raise their son in a way and they raise their daughter in a way so that they can conform with the
Right.
rest of the crowd more easily, right? And it's sad, obviously. Like I agree with Philip, it's not really the right thing to do, but it's the best thing to do for them now, especially nowadays. Because if you want to take a risk and like raising them both the same, you could very much succeed, but they could have this sort of like effect on the people around them, and it might not be very good for them on the long term.
I think that, like, in between of your opinion, Nasara, and Daryl's, I feel like you can both take into account how the world is, inform your kids on this, yet still treat them without bias.
mhm.
Like, treat them both as the same kind of human beings. Just inform the one that is female that there
A
is
possibility of a higher
a
risk.
bias towards her being victimized
Mm.
and assaulted, or like there is more. It's more impending that she uh takes measures to be protected,
Yeah.
but you don't have to, or you should not have to, um code a boy as a boy or a girl as a girl if they don't wish to. You know, you code them as they want to be themselves. They're individuals. You just warn them of what is out there. You know.
Yeah, of course. You don't force them. Obviously, you avoid forcing them anything.
Yeah.
Like, especially in the early stages of them like growing up and finding themselves and finding who they are in the world. Especially in that period, you shouldn't force them anything. You should let them discover things on their own, and it helps them learn at the same time while they're going through those crucial steps in life. But to rephrase what I meant is not because I believe that they should be treated differently just because of gender. It's not really what I meant. I'm saying that we should do that because of the current circumstances that we live in today. Because if we lived in like a perfect world, which obviously we're not, but like if we lived in a perfect world, then for sure, like we'll treat them the same. They'll grow up and be fantastic people in life, right? But unfortunately, you have to put on these add-ons in their education so that you make sure that they don't morph into something that's gonna hurt them in the long term, like in their future lives. Because you don't want them to suffer. At the end of the day, you're their parent. Obviously, you're gonna do like what's important and what's the best for them. And even if it's technically and morally the wrong thing, it's what's going to be the best for them. Then I'll do it.